Good morning and welcome to the Toronto Daily News for Sunday, January the 6th, 2019. So the build-up at the Unistoten camp in Wet'suwet'en Territory in BC has intensified over the weekend. Some members of the Gidumdin clan have been sort of temporarily recently helping out to form a new blockade or checkpoint or something like that into the territory, since I think their last one got compromised, or the bridge got compromised or something like that, or they set up another forward one. I forget where it was. But so over this past weekend, there's been a buildup of police entering the area. They've been bussing them in, and so activists fear that a raid on the checkpoint is really imminent right now. And this is something that Democracy Now! And the Globe and Mail have reported on, and CTV National News also reported on, but they didn't. I don't think they've ever talked about the activists there before. So I think this was their way of introducing the Canadian public to them. They didn't name any names. All they said was it's a protest camp in northern BC with members of a First Nation. They spent 20 seconds on this news story. Then they spent 3 minutes about stroke, about just the illness of having a stroke and recovering from it. There was no news in it. It was just about having strokes. So 3 minutes after spending 20 seconds on Unistoten, they spend 3 minutes on that. They spend 30 seconds talking about the beginning of when Orthodox Christians celebrate their holidays or something like that. They spend 2 minutes talking about parents running a marathon in honor of their daughter who died while running a marathon. And then spent 3 minutes covering storms in the U.S. And basically the only detail they presented about the situation at the camp right now is that activists have no idea when the Mounties will move in. So that's the activism news here, of course. So it's a Trans-Canada project. It's a $4.7 billion coastal GasLink pipeline. That's the name of the pipeline. GasLink workers were granted an injunction last month to enter the area. This is something that the Unistoten camp they have previously said they will fire shots at people. Everybody's been warned to stay the hell off their land and don't try to do any industrial activity there, or you'll be shot at. So it's interesting. All the Canadian news outlets, of course, centered in Toronto, where the all this money is changing hands from these pipelines. They are covering this in a really wild and wacky way. So in later news, Monday is gonna be wet and warm. Gonna have a calm afternoon and evening, windy morning, rain in the evening, but it's gonna be really warm in the evening. It's gonna be +7 in the evening. At 10 in the evening, a Reddit TTC Reddit user claimed that somebody had boarded a bus at Kipling, started acting completely nuts. They were lunging at people, making weird sounds, yelling, talking about, oh, bad stuff's going to happen. Oh, isn't this scary? And this is while the bus was on the highway. Apparently the bus driver triggered, a silent alarm type of thing, stopped at transfer, a place where people transfer from one bus to the other. And after refusing to get off, after staying on that bus for 10 minutes while it's sitting there, the guy gets onto some other bus. So I don't know. I'm not sure what happened with that after that. So the there's like a stabbing, murder, a murder stabbing, fatal stabbing at in 12:30 a.m. in the morning at a TCHC building at 40 Gordon Ridge in Scarborough. This is near Danforth and Midland. 36-year-old male victim was pronounced dead on the scene. He's on the 12th floor. His name is Ian Dyer. Apparently an unknown suspect entered the apartment of the friends that he was visiting at the time and stabbed him to death and fled. So police are obviously investigating that. So the government shutdown in the U.S. continues. I forget what day it's on, but Trump is threatening to declare a national emergency to get the American military funding to pay for his border wall. So he can't get Mexico to pay for it. He can't get Congress to pay for it. Taxpayers, Congress to authorize taxpayers to pay for it through their taxes, through the budget. And so now he wants to put military money into the wall. And he's like, I'll just maintain this shutdown forever. There was an afternoon shooting in the East End. About 2:42 p.m., police released information that 2 men had been injured. Their car was shot at. There's 2 shooters who fled on foot. So the National spent, they didn't cover the Unistoten situation at all. Instead, they spent 4 minutes about a guy who restores Nazi-era warplanes. And I was surprised at how small those planes are. Talking about the Messerschmitts. They spent 10 minutes talking about weed and TV with Rick Mercer. That's what they wanted to do instead of talking about Unistoten. So CTV, generously gave them 20 seconds of like extremely vague, misleading coverage, and the National just ignored the situation again. On Sunday, the CBC reports that there's going to be a giant shipping container mall to open at Bathurst and Front here in Toronto. It's going to open this spring. The company is called Stacked. It might only last for 2 years because that's how long their lease is. But it's going to be 30 or so businesses, 140 to 1,800 square feet. So really a lot of variation in size. So some of them are going to be, several shipping containers merged together to form big, it's going to be restaurants and whatever. But they're also going to apparently have a vertical farm and greenhouse. And 15% of the units, so 15% of 30 businesses, are going to be set aside for community enterprises. Kevin Spacey is going to go to court on Monday to face his sexual assault charges. And catching up on a few days of APTN national news, this eagle feather, as of January 2nd, this eagle feather fan that somebody turned into APTN offices, like anonymously over the holidays, and it's like in incredible condition, totally. For those who don't know about like what, indigenous traditions and stuff like that, the eagle feather fan is like, it's like, I don't know, it would be like their version of my incredible, one of a kind handcrafted guitar or something like that. It's like, it's completely priceless. And so this guy apparently found it in a dumpster, turned it in, still hasn't been found. A woman has gone missing from Hazelton, BC. Her vehicle and her belongings were found. Her name's Cindy Martin. This is before the holidays. So as of the 2nd, she still hasn't turned up. Syncrude Oil is going to potentially get fined about $500,000 because about 31 blue herons died in 2015 at its mine north of Fort McMurray, and they were also previously fined $3 million in 2008 because of 16,000 ducks that died in one of their tailings ponds. So I guess if you do the math, you can figure out how much per animal these animals are worth and how much it would cost to make them completely extinct in Canada, because I think we know how many there are, unless we don't have any more scientists at all left. I know like the ornithologist that I know has, during the Conservative reign, federally, he lost like all of his work because they just defunded all research science. So anyway, As of January 3rd, hearings are to start on the 10th over new child welfare provisions federally. And this might have big effects on non-status children who are living off reserve. They might gain like a whole bunch of supports. And another big part of it is just people, being abducted and put in state or other private custody. As of January the 4th, on Monday, the 60 Scoop survivors are getting an apology from the federal government. On New Year's Day, residents of this one family of Leduc, Alberta, which is sort of like part of Edmonton, it's a suburb of Edmonton, in the Corinthia Park and Camelot Avenue neighborhood, they got this threatening note saying, like, get the hell out, go back to reserve. We gave you all this land. We gave you all this land. Like, ouch. And somebody has been making like complaints to the city about their lawn and their sidewalk. So basically, there's somebody in the neighborhood who's messing with them. And there was a similar letter to another family in another neighborhood in Edmonton. And so the police are trying to figure out whether they're connected. What the hell? The mayor has gone on record condemning this whole campaign of hatred, and it's being investigated as a hate crime. So Global News is obsessing over the carbon tax. Of course, their whole Focus on Ontario thing on Sunday was about a few things, but it was mostly about their year of carbon, they're calling it. How they did say about 5% out of the 20% of the cheapness of our gas is because of conservative actions, and conservatives are sort of claiming responsibility for how cheap gas is, and they're saying 15% of it is because oil is cheap, 5% of it is because of sort of we're temporarily experiencing this artificial cheapness of gasoline because the conservatives are partially right. So it's this messy mix. And this PC representative told them that commuters in the 905 are going to be a major part of the group of Canadians that are going to be concerned with this carbon tax. And that's us. That's us here in Toronto. So, hey, they're talking about us. So Toronto's drivers are, the big core of who's gonna be fuming about this, apparently. Although the federal government claims that they're going to kind of compensate people for it in tax. And, it's understandable people like really don't like being charged something up front and that with promises of, oh, we'll just compensate you later. So, and this is kind of I don't know, this is something that, that both liberal and conservative governments are really into. And I think it's partially to just get you to pay your taxes, where they start doing all these, they've got all these crazy, they make everything cost so much money. And then they're like, oh, if you're this type of person and you this, and you know about this program, then you can get a rebate on this at the end of the year, but you have to pay for it first. You have to like have the money up front and all this different. So there's so much policy that, as somebody who doesn't have a lot to spend up front for anything, I can understand people whinging about poor Ontarians having to pay more for gas up front and then being promised this rebate in the after they do their taxes, if they qualify or whatever, having these like promises from this government that they don't like because they're drivers in the 905 apparently. So where am I going with this? Anyway, so the other news is Bombardier and Metrolinx are sort of like, they've got conflicting reports over why the streetcars for the Crosstown LRT, surprise, surprise, are going to be late. Oh no, surprise, you can't believe it. We only have one company that's going to do it. We're paying them so much money. They're practically a crown corporation. They're going to be late with the work. Wow. And so Bombardier is saying like, oh, well, we can't transport them as fast because of wide load transportation restrictions. And then Metrolinx is saying, well, we inspected the vehicles and they're totally not ready. There's all this like specifications that are totally missing and not up to spec. And so whatever, the Eglinton Crosstown, surprise, surprise, it's still a mess. This is going to be great though. At some point, we'll be able to get across like east to west across town in kind of midtown or the north end of, north of the core. It'll be nice, especially if there's some bike lanes along it too. That'd be super cool, but that's just me. And that is the news for Toronto for Sunday. The first Sunday of January of 2019. It's going to be a crazy year. I can already feel it. This is why I started doing this, because I felt like this is going to be the craziest year ever. We're going to a whole other level. We're all in the crosshairs of our own something. It's now or never. This is the time to spread the good news, the bad news, and the news that for some reason CBC or whoever else doesn't want to, or wants to say, oh yeah, there's some native people somewhere doing some protest camp thing, and blah 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 blah. And meanwhile, it's it's the next crazy standoff between white people and red people in Turtle Island over a huge pollution project. It's in the context for this is Canadians don't know that the Oka crisis was about white people wanting a golf course in some forest that some red people really didn't want to have a golf course in and also had purview over. Okay. Ciao for now.